And this morning, I want to make a video about people who like to go to restaurants, knowing that a particular restaurant doesn't have on the menu or serve their food a particular way they want to eat, or they just don't have the food that they like to eat altogether, but they go to the restaurant anyways and then complain about it. So for example, let's say you like a good steak dinner sometimes. You know, you want your steak cooked medium rare, and maybe that's just the way it was when you grew up in your household. Your mom or your dad, when they cooked a steak medium rare, and that's the way you like to eat it. Moist. You don't want it cooked well done to where you cut into it, it's really tough, like maybe a piece of cardboard, right? So how it goes typically is you decide, I want to go out and have a good steak dinner somewhere. So you're out on the freeway or the main road where you live at, and yeah, you're just looking at all the different exits and feeder roads and accesses, if you will, where there's different restaurants. And so you pull up to the first one you see, and you kind of look at the parking lot, if you will, and because it has a lot of spaces vacant, there's some cars there, but there's a lot of vacancy. So you pull in there because it's real easy and convenient. It feels comfortable. I can park in right now, versus if I had to spend more time looking for other restaurants and then also had availability, right? So sure, you go into the first restaurant, and as you're walking into it, there's a sign outside before you enter, and it's very clearly written. The writing is on the wall. It says, "We do not cook steaks medium rare here. We don't." And yeah, there may be an explanation up there, but really, explanation really isn't important as a situation itself. The situation is there's a sign that says, "We do not cook steaks medium rare here." But nonetheless, knowing that you prefer steak cooked medium rare, you decide to go in anyways. Who knows? We'll see what happens, right? So we go in and sit down at the table, and your waiter comes up, he or she, and the waiter takes your order. And sure enough, you start ordering your steak dinner. You tell them, along with the steak dinner, you want your potato, fully loaded, sour cream, bacon bits, onions, whatever else comes on a potato. You order your salad, perhaps you want Italian dressing, whatever it is. You get the idea. And then, of course, your steak. You look at the waiter and you say, "I want my steak cooked medium rare." And of course, the waiter kind of just looks at you a bit odd, but takes your order nonetheless, goes to the kitchen, drops off your order. And a little bit later, sure enough, your order comes back out. The waiter gets it from the expediter and brings you your steak dinner. And of course, what do you think happens, right? You start cutting into your steak, or this person is cutting in their steak. And yep, it's cooked well done, right? It's cooked well done. It's real tough. And you're unhappy. You call the waiter back and you start complaining to the waiter. "I ordered my steak medium rare, but this one's cooked well done." That's right. And nonetheless, right, it said outside, "We do not cook steaks medium rare here." In fact, the waiter points it out to you too. "Ma'am, we do not cook steaks medium rare here. It says it clearly on the sign outside. This is the way we serve steak here." So this is what people do a lot in relationships, right? So people's behavior is like the writing on the wall. People's behavior is going to tell you what they place value on and what they serve through their behaviors and what they make a priority. So with this example of the restaurant and medium rare steak, if you want your steak cooked medium rare, and that's how you prefer it, then you need to go to a restaurant that freaking cooks medium rare steak. Don't be getting mad at the waiter and complaining. Don't be mad at the restaurant. The restaurant is who is what it is, and they have a sign outside. It's very clear. So in this context, you really, are not a victim per se. You're not. The writing was on the wall. You chose to ignore it. Perhaps maybe you feel entitled. I'm going to go in there and I'm going to get this entity, if you will, this business in a relationship, a person, to conform and become what I want them to be for me, for what I prefer. And when they don't, I'm going to feel resentful. I'm going to feel angry. I'm going to complain to people. And even worse, I'm going to keep going back to the same freaking restaurant over and over again, being pissed off and upset that I never get my medium rare steak. So with people, it's similar too. With people, it is very similar. So certain people, for different reasons, are not going to give you the value that you want. And that's about them. It's who they are. It's their behavior. And the problem with this is that you don't necessarily have the ability. Most of the time, you're not going to get people to change to be what you want them to be. Sometimes people might generally make some changes, and that really, to the extent when it happens, if it's because they want to change, they decide to start placing values on things differently. That's different. They're changing for themselves. They're not changing for you per se, because if it's just for you, that's not really typically sustainable or authentic. So this lies in the problem with insight and awareness, right? So a person can be aware. Yeah, I'm aware I go to a restaurant that doesn't freaking cook medium rare steak. I'm aware of what's happening, but I'm going to still keep going back to restaurants that don't cook medium rare steak because it's easy to park there, right? Boom, I get in there right away. Because if I took time to try other restaurants, maybe it took longer to find parking, but eventually I do find one that does cook medium rare steaks. It's on the menu. I do get in there and I find the one. Imagine that, I get what I want, right? So relationships are similar. If you're not getting the value you want, even though there might be certain things about the particular relationship you're unhappy with, maybe there are some things that you do like about it, right? Maybe it's just physical attraction, sex, maybe other needs are being met, but not really the bigger picture, the core of the needs that you really need the most in terms of intimacy, trust, feeling valued, respected, and so on and so on. So like the analogy of finding a restaurant that cooks the medium rare steak, right? Yeah, you need to find people, and it does take an effort. It does. But eventually you find somebody, hopefully as evidenced by their behavior, that they are congruent, they're similar with you in terms of values, and that they do give you the value you want. So in this context, you are getting served or what you want out of what you say your values are. So this lies in the problem with awareness versus insight. Awareness, insight, right? So little flashlight example, but yeah, I mean, what's the point? Awareness is just like being a flashlight that you don't want to turn it on, or you're not using it, right? You have the capacity. So insight is, yeah, it's like the light goes off, you see more clearly, but more importantly, even if you are seeing more clearly, okay, what are you going to do? Are you going to make decisions based on what is true? Or are you going to ignore the red flags, the warning signs? The writing is on the wall, if you will. So I think you get the idea, and sure, there can be context to a lot of things, and more might be said about why people ignore red flags, or they ignore behaviors, they ignore the writing on the wall. But at the end of the day, the explanation for the situation is not as important as the situation itself. If you're not being valued, if you don't feel respected, and even worse, if you're tolerating you're being tolerant of abuse and disrespect, it's what it is, and that's the only thing that matters, right? So hopefully you start going to different contexts, other situations where you can get the value you say you want.